Every morning before the sun touches the river, the village begins to wake. Not all at once. Slowly. One house, then another, then another. In one small home near the edge of the village, a woman named Mirette opens her eyes in the dark. She doesn't need a clock. She has never needed one. Her body simply knows, the way it has known every morning of her life, that it is time. She lies still for a moment, listening. The house is quiet. Her husband is still asleep beside her. Somewhere near the doorway, their youngest child stirs, then settles again. Outside, the sky is not yet light, but it is not fully dark either. It is that soft, in-between color, neither night nor day, that comes just before the world remembers to wake up. Mirette rises slowly. Her feet find the packed earth floor, cool beneath her. She reaches for the small clay lamp beside the sleeping mat and gently coaxes its flame a little brighter with a breath. Careful, unhurried, the light spreads softly across the room. Simple woven mats, a few clay jars along the wall holding grain and water and oil, a wooden stool, nothing more. There's nothing extra in this house, nothing wasted. Everything has its place, and everything has been in that place for years. Merritt wraps a plain linen shawl around her shoulders against the last coolness of the night and steps toward the doorway. Outside, the air is soft and still. The palm trees at the edge of the village stand motionless, their long leaves hanging quiet in the windless dark. Somewhere in the distance, very faint, she can hear the river. Not loud, just a low, steady presence, the way it has always been there, every morning, every single day of her life. She pauses in the doorway for a moment, just breathing, just standing. There's a strange comfort in mornings like this, in knowing exactly what the day will hold, in knowing that today will look very much like yesterday, and tomorrow will look very much like today. Some mornings, she thinks about nothing at all. This is one of those mornings. Behind her, in the house, her husband begins to stir. A soft cough, the shift of a woven mat. Their eldest son, still young, but old enough to help now, will need to be woken soon too. But not yet. For just a few more moments, the world belongs only to her, and the quiet, and the low sound of the river in the dark. She steps back inside and moves toward the small hearth in the corner, where the embers from last night's fire still glow, faint and orange, beneath a thin layer of ash. Slowly, carefully, she begins to coax them back to life. A little dry grass, a little patience, a soft breath again and again until a small flame catches, flickers, and holds. The fire will need to grow slowly before it's ready for the bread. There's time for that. There's always time in a morning like this. Outside, somewhere near the riverbank, the first true light of dawn is beginning to touch the water. But here, inside this small, quiet house, the day is only just beginning to stir. One small flame, one soft breath, one gentle motion at a time. And when the fire was finally steady, there was still the whole village waiting to wake up around her. Just like every morning, the village wakes slowly, house by house, in no particular hurry. By now, the sky above the Nile is softened into a pale gold, the kind of light that comes only in the very first hour after sunrise. Smoke begins to rise, thin and gray, from one hearth, then another, curling upward into the still morning air. Somewhere nearby, chickens shuffle and cluck along the packed earth paths between the houses, pecking at the ground, unbothered by anything at all. A dog stretches slowly in a patch of early sunlight, then settles back down, in no rush to do anything more than that. The village itself is small, a cluster of mud brick houses, close together, their flat roofs the same warm sandy color as the earth around them. Narrow paths wind between the houses, worn smooth by thousands of footsteps over thousands of mornings, over many, many years. Merritt's neighbor, an older woman named Tui, steps out of her own doorway at almost the exact same moment as she does every morning. The two women exchange a small nod. No words are needed. They have done this so many times that the nod says everything. Good morning. Another day. Here we are again. Down one of the paths, a group of men begin walking together toward the riverbank, carrying simple tools over their shoulders. Nothing elaborate, just wood and stone, shaped by patient hands over many seasons. They will spend the morning at the fields, as they do every morning, tending to whatever the season requires of them. Children, too, are beginning to appear, rubbing sleep from their eyes, wandering out into the soft morning light. One small boy sits by his doorway, watching a line of ants make their slow way across the ground, in absolutely no hurry to be anywhere else. Everything here moves at the same unhurried pace. The chickens, the dog, the smoke, the footsteps, the morning itself. There's no reason to rush. The bread will bake when it bakes. The fields will be tended when they are tended. The sun will rise higher, and then it will set again, just as it always does. Merritt carries a large clay jar toward the well at the center of the village, balancing it easily on her shoulder, the way she has done every single morning for as long as she can remember. A few other women are already there, filling their own jars, speaking quietly among themselves. Small, unhurried conversations about small, unhurried things. The water is cool and clear, drawn up from deep below the sandy earth. Merritt fills her jar slowly, listening to the soft murmur of voices around her, the gentle splash of water, the distant clucking of chickens, the soft creak of a door somewhere behind her. This is the sound of the village waking up. It sounds the same almost every single day, and there is something deeply comforting in that, in the sameness, in knowing exactly what this morning sounds like, because it is the same as every morning before it. With the jar full and heavy on her shoulder, Merritt turns and begins the slow walk back home, past the same houses, along the same path, under the same soft golden light. Behind her, the village continues to stir, slowly, gently, the way it always does, one quiet morning task at a time. And back at home, the fire was ready now. It was time to begin the bread. Every day begins with bread. It has always been this way for as long as anyone in the village can remember. Back inside the house, the fire, Merritt started earlier, has settled into a slow, steady glow, throwing soft warmth across the small room. She kneels beside a low grinding stone, its surface worn smooth and slightly curved from years and years of use. Onto it, she pours a small measure of emmer wheat, a coarse, ancient grain, the same grain her mother ground, and her mother's mother before that. Slowly she begins to grind, using a smaller stone held in both hands, pressing and rolling it back and forth across the grain. The motion is slow and steady and endlessly familiar. Back, forward, back, forward. There's no need to hurry this. Bread has never been made quickly here. It takes time and patience and the same repeated motion over and over until the grain becomes something closer to flour. Her arms know this motion so well that her mind is free to wander, gently, from thought to thought, the way it always does during this part of the morning. She thinks briefly about the fields and whether the barley will be ready soon. She thinks about her youngest child, still sleeping. She thinks about nothing at all for a while and simply grinds back, forward, back, forward. Slowly, the coarse grain becomes a rough, pale flour, gathering in a small heap at the edge of the stone. She scoops it carefully into a clay bowl, adds a little water, and begins to work it with her hands, the same way she works it every single morning. The dough is thick and a little rough. Nothing like the soft, refined bread of later centuries. But it is bread, and it is enough, and it always has been. She kneads slowly. Press, fold, turn, press, fold, turn. Outside, she can hear her husband and eldest son speaking quietly near the doorway, gathering the tools they'll need for the fields today. Her youngest child appears in the doorway, still sleepy, rubbing one eye with a small fist, watching his mother's hands move over the dough. She smiles at him, but doesn't stop kneading. There is no reason to stop. The rhythm continues. Press, fold, turn. When the dough is ready, she shapes it into small, flat rounds and carries them toward the mudbrick oven just outside the house. A simple, domed shape, blackened from years of fires. Inside the oven, the fire has burned down to hot, glowing embers, exactly the way it needs to be. She places the flat rounds carefully against the warm inner walls of the oven, one by one, unhurried, the same way she has done it every morning of her life. Slowly, the bread begins to bake, the smell rising warm and earthy into the morning air, drifting gently through the open doorway of the house. Her youngest child sits nearby, still watching, still sleepy, content simply to be near his mother and the warmth of the fire. There is nothing else to do now but wait. The bread will bake at its own pace. It cannot be rushed. It never can be. So Merritt sits for a moment beside the oven, feeling its gentle warmth against her skin, listening to the soft crackle of the embers inside. The morning continues around her, slow and familiar. Somewhere nearby, a rooster crows again, later this time as if even it has settled into the rhythm of the day. Slowly, the smell of baking bread grows stronger, warmer, more golden. Once the bread was wrapped in a simple cloth, it was time to walk to the fields, just as it was every morning. Merritt's husband, a quiet man named Ipu, slings a simple wooden hoe over one shoulder. Their eldest son carries a woven basket and a small clay jug of water. They step out of the house together into the soft morning light and begin the familiar walk along the path that leads down toward the river. The path is narrow, worn smooth by generations of footsteps before theirs. It winds gently past other houses, past the well, past the quiet murmur of the village settling into its day. The air smells of river water and warm earth, and the faint, lingering scent of baked bread still clinging to the cloth in Ipu's hand. Palm trees line parts of the path, their long shadows stretching gently across the ground, moving so slowly that they seem almost still. Somewhere overhead, a bird calls once, then again, then falls silent, content simply to watch the morning pass beneath it. The Nile appears slowly through gaps in the trees, wide and calm, its surface catching soft flashes of early morning light. This walk is the same every single day. The same path, the same trees, the same gentle sound of water growing louder as they approach the fields. Ipu and his son walk without hurrying, the way everyone in the village walks, because there has never been any reason to walk quickly here. The fields begin just beyond a low rise near the riverbank, long, narrow strips of dark, fertile soil, still slightly damp from the river's gift. Other families are arriving too, walking their own familiar paths, carrying their own familiar tools, beginning their own familiar mornings. A soft greeting passes between neighbors, a nod, a few quiet words about the weather or the soil, or nothing in particular. There is comfort in this too, in seeing the same faces on the same path, walking toward the same fields, morning after morning after morning. Merritt's eldest son sets down the woven basket at the edge of the field and looks out over the dark soil, waiting patiently for his father to begin. The sun is higher now, warm but not yet harsh, casting a soft golden light across the long rows of earth. Somewhere in the distance, a small group of oxen wait calmly near the edge of another field, swishing their tails slowly, unbothered by the gentle morning heat. Ipu breathes in the familiar smell of the soil, rich, dark, faintly damp, the same smell that has greeted him every single morning of his life. He glances at his son and gives a small, quiet nod. It is time to begin. And slowly, unhurried, the two of them step out onto the soft earth, ready for the long, familiar work of the morning ahead. The fields along the Nile are dark and rich, fed every year by the same gentle flood that has shaped this land for longer than anyone can remember. Ipu leads a pair of oxen slowly out onto the soft earth, guiding a simple wooden plow behind them. The oxen move at their own unhurried pace, swaying gently from side to side, their large, dark eyes calm and patient. Behind the plow, the earth turns slowly, folding over itself in long, dark rows, releasing a soft, rich smell into the morning air. This work has not changed in generations. The same wooden plow, the same slow oxen, the same dark soil, turned gently under the same warm sun. Ipu's son follows behind, carrying a small woven basket of seed, scattering it carefully across the freshly turned earth. His movements are slow and steady, practiced already, even though he is still young. He has done this every season since he was old enough to walk beside his father. Handful by handful, the seed falls softly onto the dark soil, disappearing into the earth, waiting patiently for water and sun and time to do the rest. Nearby, other families work their own fields in the same unhurried rhythm, plowing, sowing, plowing, sowing, the same simple motions repeated across the entire valley. The oxen breathe slowly, their breath visible for just a moment in the cool morning air, before fading into nothing. Somewhere overhead, a small bird circles once, then settles onto a low branch, watching the fields below with quiet patience. Ipu pauses for a moment, resting one hand against the wooden plow, looking out over the long rows of a dark earth stretching toward the river. There's a deep, quiet satisfaction in this kind of work. Nothing about it is fast. Nothing about it needs to be. The soil will do what the soil has always done. The seed will grow when it is ready to grow. The river will rise again next year, just as it always has. All Ipu and his son need to do is this: plow and sow and wait, the same way their fathers did, and their fathers before them. The sun climbs a little higher. The morning grows a little warmer. The rhythm of the work continues, slow and steady, row after row after row. Sometimes Ipu's son hums a quiet tune under his breath, an old melody with no real words, just a soft sound to match the rhythm of his steps. The oxen plod on, unbothered, their hooves pressing gently into the soft, dark earth. Far across the field, another farmer lifts a hand in greeting. Ipu lifts his own hand in return. No words are needed, just a quiet acknowledgement between two men doing the same slow work under the same warm sky. Row by row, the field slowly fills with fresh, dark soil and quietly buried seed. There's still much of the field left to plow, but there is no rush. There is never any rush here. The sun would climb higher still before the work of the morning was done, and somewhere behind them, the river continued its slow, endless rise. Everything in this valley depends on the river. It always has. Once each year, the Nile rises slowly, gently spreading dark, rich water and silt across the fields that border its banks. This is not something the village fears. It is something the village waits for, the way one waits for an old, trusted friend. Ipu pauses in his work for a moment, looking toward the water, watching it move slowly past, wide and calm and endless. The river has always risen at roughly the same time each year and fallen again a little while later, leaving behind a fresh layer of dark, fertile soil. Without this slow, patient flooding, nothing would grow here. The village has always known this, the way it knows the sun will rise and set and rise again. There are no walls built to stop the water, no reason to stop it. The flood is not an enemy here. It is the reason anything grows at all. Ipu's son looks out at the water too, quiet for a moment, remembering the stories his grandmother used to tell him about the river's slow, generous rise. She used to say the river gave its gift patiently, a little every year, never rushing, never taking more than it gave. The water moves so slowly along the edges of the fields that it is almost still, catching soft reflections of the pale morning sky above it. Somewhere further down the bank, a group of birds wade calmly through the shallow water, unbothered, searching slowly for something to eat. The village has learned over generations exactly when to plant and exactly when to wait, following the same slow rhythm the river has always kept. There's no need to measure it precisely. The land itself remembers. The soil darkens, the water rises, the fields grow ready. Ipu remembers his own father showing him, many years ago, the exact mark on an old stone near the riverbank where the water always seemed to rise to, year after year after year. That same mark is still there today, worn smooth by time, quietly keeping track of a rhythm far older than any of them. The river does not rush. It never has. It simply rises, slowly, gently, giving what it has always given, and then slowly falls again, leaving the fields dark and ready. Ipu turns back toward his work, the plow waiting patiently behind him, the oxen standing calm and still. There's still seed to sow today, but there's no hurry. The river has already done its slow, patient work. Now it is simply their turn to do theirs. Behind them, the water continued its quiet rise, the way it always had, the way it always would, long after this morning had ended, long after they themselves were gone. And high above the fields, the sun continued its own slow climb toward the stillness of midday.